Acting under the cover of a Hollywood producer scouting a location for a science fiction film, a CIA agent launches a dangerous operation to rescue 6 Americans in Tehran during the U.S. hostage crisis in Iran in 1979. Welcome back to Movies Explained. Today's film is a drama thriller from 2012 titled Argo. The Persian Empire, which is now known as Iran. For the last 2,500 years, this nation has been controlled by a series of kings known as Shahs. Mohammad Mossadegh, a secular Democrat, was elected Prime Minister of Iran in 1950. He nationalized British and American petroleum assets, giving Iranian oil to the Iranian people. However, in 1953, the United States and the United Kingdom staged a coup that ousted Mossadegh and established Reza Pahlavi as Shah. The young Shah was noted for his extravagance and grandeur. His wife was said to bathe in milk, and the Shah had his lunch flown in from Paris by aircraft. People went hungry. The Shah maintained control with his merciless internal police force, the 𝒍𝒊𝒌𝒆. Torture and fear prevailed. He then initiated an effort to westernize Iran, infuriating the country's mostly Shiite people. Iran's people deposed the Shah in 1979. Ayatollah Khomeini, the exiled cleric, has returned to govern Iran. Score settling, murder squads and anarchy ensued. The Shah, who was dying of cancer, was granted asylum in the United States. Iranians came to the streets outside the U.S. Embassy, demanding the death of the Shah. Embassy workers are processing visa applications while others watch the protests from the window. Panic ensues when people start jumping over the fences. One of the protesters cuts the chain and opens the gates as the angry mob runs inside. An order is given to burn everything, and the staff begin gathering sensitive paperwork. The Marines stationed at the embassy begin to arm themselves with riot gear as a superior officer orders them not to use lethal force, or else the angry mob will kill everyone inside the embassy. Tear gas is fired on the protesters. Shortly after, one of the embassy workers attempts to go out and negotiate with the mob and is quickly taken hostage. They put a gun on his head and instruct him to have the doors opened. He yells for the staff to open the door, which they eventually do, and the mob storms the building. 6 embassy workers happen to be in the area of the building that has a back exit into the street and are able to escape and run to the Canadian ambassador's residence as the rest of the embassy staff are taken hostage by the mob with guns. Back in the US, they scramble to figure out what to do. One of the men tells the others that if this were the Soviets, they would have invaded Iran already. Another guy informs them that they have a total of 50 embassy workers and that 6 have managed to escape. 69 days have passed since the siege. Yellow ribbons are used in the US to show support for the hostages as they are held in the US embassy, now turned into a prison. The protesters announce their demands on TV. They demand the Shah to be returned to Iran to face justice for the 30 years of oppression. They warn that if a rescue attempt is made, all hostages will be immediately executed. Americans protest in front of the Iranian embassy, burning the Iranian flag and assaulting Iranians on the streets. Day 74, CIA agent Tony Mendez has an idea. He wants to pose as a film crew to sneak into Iran and rescue the hostages. He flies to Hollywood and meets with famous producer John Chambers, who agrees to help him organize a fake movie. He tells Tony that they need to coordinate every detail just as they would if they were making a real movie: directors, script, and big names. Together they go to big shot director Lester Siegel's house, who also agrees to help. Lester tells them that they're gonna need a script. At the Canadian ambassador Ken Taylor's house, the Americans continue hiding out. They play chess while gunshots are heard outside. At Lester's mansion in Hollywood, they are sifting through film scripts in search of an Iranian-appropriate film. Tony finds a movie called Argo, and presents it to Lester and John, and they think it's perfect. They quickly rent an office, make business cards and make a poster for their fake movie. Tony continues to tell them that he's not feeling it, that the lives of Americans are at stake, and that it needs to be more authentic. Lester calls his connections in the media to hype up the film. They host a big party for the movie at the Beverly Hilton and get a lot of reporters inquiring about it. Meanwhile in Iran, the hostages are lined up for a mock execution, which psychologically terrorizes the American hostages when they pull the trigger, but there's no bullets in them. The hostages break down crying. In Hollywood, Tony and the guys celebrate with drinks when they see the movie on front pages of magazines. They pitch the movie idea to the Secretary of State, who thinks it's a bad idea, but Tony reassures him that it's the best bad idea they have, and the secretary eventually sanctions the operation. Tony rushes to the airport, calling John on the way to notify him that the operation has been green-lighted. He flies to Istanbul and applies for a visa at the Iranian embassy. He gets grilled with questions but eventually gets a visa for his trip. In the US, they get word that the Iranians have figured out that 6 of the hostages have escaped and they know that they're hiding out at the Canadian ambassador's house. Tony arrives in Iran and is immediately shocked by the drastic changes that have occurred. Armed militias guard the streets, as a dead body from a public execution hangs in the street. When he arrives at the Canadian embassy, the ambassador hands him Canadian passports for the 6 embassy staffers who will be smuggled out of Iran. The Canadian ambassador informs Tony that one of the housekeepers is aware of their presence at the embassy and that he does not trust her. He wants Tony to expedite whatever they are doing. They go inside and Tony meets the embassy staff he's there to smuggle out. He hands each of them a copy of the movie script that they'll be using as cover, and right away there are objections from the group. They're nervous about the idea, especially after reading several news articles about Americans being executed. They inform Tony that they meticulously scrutinize every foreigner before departing and they are frightened of being exposed. Tony hands them an envelope with their new identity and instructs them to memorize every detail of it. Who they are, where they've been, allergies and even who they've had an affair with. He wants them to spend the day studying until he's back the following day, when they'll need to go to a local bazaar for film location scouting to make their movie look real and credible. Meanwhile, the Iranians have a large team of people sorting through the shredded papers from the American embassy, piecing together the puzzle to learn everything they can about the Americans. Later, Tony shows up with a van to transport everyone to the bazaar. On the way, they come across an angry mob of protesters who begin banging on the car, terrifying everyone inside. When they arrive at the bazaar, an Iranian tour guide from the Ministry of Culture welcomes them and shows them around. As they tour the bazaar, one of the American women uses her Polaroid camera to take pictures, which irritates the local Iranians, who are not happy about their presence. She quickly offers the picture to defuse the situation, but it only gets worse, and they barely manage to leave without incident. Meanwhile, Iranian government officials arrive and begin asking the housekeeper questions about the people staying at the embassy. He inquires as to when the ambassador's guests arrived, and she responds that it was 2 days ago. Tony arrives back at the Canadian embassy with the Americans. He receives a call from Washington and they want him to cancel the operation and head home. He tells Tony that the Delta Force is going to storm the American embassy soon, to rescue the hostages. While everyone else is having fun and drinking, Tony grabs a bottle of scotch and heads to his hotel room. He spends the night drinking and deciding what to do. In the morning, he calls Washington and informs them that he will be defying their orders and evacuating everyone. Tony transports everyone from the embassy to the airport. During passport control, they must step aside for questioning. Officials in Iran want to know who they are and what they're doing in the country. They describe the film while displaying magazines and illustrations from the film. Tony gives them his business card and informs them that they can call to verify the information if they so choose. Meanwhile, the Iranians working on the shredded papers have pieced together a paper with the identity of one of the embassy staffers. The Iranians now know for a fact that the people staying at the Canadian embassy are the Americans that escaped from the American embassy. They storm the Canadian embassy looking for the Americans. At the airport, the Iranian official calls the agency listed on the business card to confirm the film, asks for the person listed on the business card, and is told that the person is out of the country working on a new film. They let them pass, and Tony gives the guards the movie sketches as a souvenir, which makes their day. They board the airport bus and are driven to the airplane. Meanwhile, the Iranian officials that stormed the Canadian embassy call the airport and inform them about the Americans. The guard immediately runs to the gate to stop the Americans. Once at the gate, he informs the guards who moments ago allowed them to pass. They force the staff of Swiss Airlines to open the gates. When they're unable to, they shoot the door and run after the Americans. The plane radios the tower for clearance to take off and are told they're number 2 in line to fly. Iranian officials with police cars begin speeding down the runway as the tower gives the plane clearance for takeoff. The plane begins to accelerate with the men behind trying to catch up. With a few meters left, the plane takes off and the Iranians pump their brakes. Washington is informed about the plane taking off and they patiently wait for it to leave Iranian airspace before celebrating. Moments later, the flight attendant announces that alcoholic beverages are now available since they are out of Iranian airspace. Very emotional celebrations take place, with hugs, tears and laughter. Lester and John are informed about them successfully taking off and celebrate with excitement. Hugs and applause are heard all over the CIA headquarters. The 6 Americans are commended for their bravery. News reports all over TV stations show American politicians thanking Canada for their help and cooperation, while the Iranians announce retribution towards Canada for what they claim to be a violation of the sovereignty of Iran. Tony hands over everything he has on the operation to the CIA Archives Department. He keeps one of the movie boards, which he keeps on a shelf in his son's bedroom. Tony is awarded the Intelligence Star Award, which is the highest award the CIA has. He is told that the operation was classified, so the award and award ceremony will also be classified. The Iran hostage crisis ended on January 20, 1981. They spent 444 days in captivity. Tony Mendez's star was returned to him in 1997, when the Argo operation was declassified by President Clinton. He lives in rural Maryland with his family. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe for more videos.